Hi, welcome to Crime Spree Magazine's virtual interviews. Today we are interviewing with best-selling authors known for their cowboy stories. Macy Yates, and maybe Macy, you can hold up your book, is well known for her cowboy stories where relationships and family are center stage. Her latest is The Last Christmas Cowboy. BJ Daniels, and if you could hold it up, BJ, blends her cowboys with a suspenseful mystery plot. Her latest is Heart of Gold. Caitlyn Cruz has a series that has her cowboys trying to overcome their cruel late father. Her latest is The Last Real Cowboy. So ladies, let's get going. Let's get started. Unlike many of the other genre authors, writers of cowboy stories seem to have a few in one year. And Macy, I'm wondering if you can take it and kind of explain why do you think that's so?
I mean, I think we're lucky because I think the reader appetite is so voracious. I think we're always writing for the reader. And it works great for me because I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing than, especially in a pandemic, honestly, than visiting my kind of fictional small town and hanging out on the ranch with my cowboys. So I think, honestly, it's down to the reader. I think we have such enthusiastic, dedicated readers in our subgenre. And yeah, so thank you, readers.
And BJ, what about you?
Oh, I agree. During the pandemic, it's worked out well. We get to spend a lot of time with our cowboys, more time sometimes than you really want to. It'd be nice to get out, but yes. And our readers are so loyal, and they read them so fast that it's really hard to keep up with their appetite. Yeah, definitely.
And Caitlyn, what do you think?
I would agree. I think the good part about writing about cowboys, again, you can't leave your house, but you can write all these stories about galloping across the range. I mean, it almost makes you feel like you're there. So hopefully that translates into the stories.
Yeah, I was going to say they're good escape books for us when we're stuck in a home and not able to go out or see anybody. You know, it's kind of like you can dream of the wilderness out there. You know. I'm going to give a brief summary of each of your books, and then I'd like you to expand on it if you can. BJ, you have a judge who helped teens get a second chance, and when they become adults, he seems to still be watching out for them.
That's right. I knew a judge that was kind of like that. Anybody who went before him, they never knew what he was going to do. And he sometimes would say, you know what, you're going into counseling, or you're going here, or you're going there. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a judge that when he saw kids that he thought he could help, he'd send them to this boot camp of his. And then in the boot camp, of course, that turned them around, and now they become these great citizens. And then when something comes up that he thinks they can handle, he asks them to go take care of it. So that's where the mystery comes in. And of course, the romance.
Right, but you also have a little where there's like twins or something, and they're coming. Someone sees them, and is that right?
Well, there's people come back from the dead. Apparently, yes, yeah, we have some of that in this book. Yes, in this one, the heroine starts seeing her dead stepsister, who she feels really guilty about because she feels like she's the one that got her killed. And so it takes the reader on a ride to see where we're headed here. Yeah.
It's like that movie, remember, I See Dead People?
Yes. Yes. And of course, the hero, he's there for her, has to be there for her, keep her grounded.
That's right. Macy, your latest has another of the Daniels family trying to overcome the loss of her parents, along with her best friend, who's also trying to overcome the loss of his mother that happened in the same plane crash years ago.
Yes. So I affectionately call this one like Party of Five, but like on a ranch with cowboys. So basically the whole, like all these kids that grew up on this ranch together kind of lost, except one, lost their parents in this same accident. And they kind of raised each other on Hope Springs Ranch. And so The Last Christmas Cowboy is about Rose and Logan is kind of the family friend, and his mother was a single mother and she died in the plane crash, and he ended up moving on to the ranch with them. And Rose, he's actually best friends with Rose's older brother, but they have kind of become really good friends as they've worked together on the ranch, because it's become their kind of thing. They're two of the more invested in the actual ranch itself. And really my inspiration for this book was that I was rewatching the Jane Austen, well, I just forgot the name of the movie. I'm going to look in my dedication because I just forgot which movie it was. Gwyneth Paltrow, Jeremy Northam, Emma. Thank you. My brain doesn't work. Yeah, so it's kind of based on Emma. I was like, really what I wanted to do was write someone saying badly done. But because it's my favorite part of that movie. But I thought matchmaking and Christmas and cowboys, what could be better? So that was sort of my jumping off point for that book. And yeah, it was really fun.
It was all of your books fun to read. So, Caitlyn, at the heart of your story are how siblings have a rivalry, but are there for each other. So, take it from there.
Well, I just think families are so fascinating. You know, when I think about, for example, say my sister, who I love so dearly and would be the first to punch in the face, if anyone else came and tried to say anything to her, I wouldn't take that well. I just think that families are endlessly fascinating. So with the Cowboy family in this one, it's brothers. So the Everetts, you know, they had a terrible father who died and is not mourned really because he was just awful, and he's sort of left them with this lasting legacy of not knowing how to love anything really because he was so terrible to them. And the women that they find, including in this book, in The Last Real Cowboy, it's the youngest, much younger daughter in a family of, you know, 4 other brothers who have parents who are still together. They have their own issues, but it's not quite the same. So I had a lot of fun trying to like figure out all the family dynamics and how these two people who feel completely overlooked by their siblings sort of act out a little bit and then come together in the end.
So do you have brothers and sisters, or
I do.
Siblings?
Oh, my sister's only 18 months younger than me. That's why she was called up for the immediate.
I was just curious because I have 2 sisters, so I never had brothers trying to protect me or you know.
I would say that my brother didn't try to protect me, but I think he did. I just didn't appreciate it. You know, it's much easier to read it in a book, I think, than to be like, why are you being so mean to me?
Okay, so how does the relationship between the hero and heroine affect the story? So we'll start with you, Caitlyn. Your hero is Brady Everett, who's the youngest brother, and the heroine is Amanda Kittredge.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, how does their relationship
affect the story?
Well, I mean, their relationship is the story. You know, Amanda Kittredge decides to change her life and decides that she's going to work in this, you know, very questionable bar in town. And Brady Everett, who has always seen her as a child, deliberately wants to only think of her being in high school, suddenly sees her basically in the way too tight t-shirt and is like, whoa, has to rethink his whole life. And he doesn't like that at all. So he's very grumpy about the fact that she's not in fact a child. And she's sort of like, well, I've had a crush on you my whole life. Let's go. So that doesn't end really well for either one of them. And then of course ends really well at the end when they figure all their stuff out.
So, BJ, your hero is William Shepard and your heroine is Charlie Farmington.
Yes. Charlie is quite different. She reads her horoscope every morning and takes it very seriously. And the first time that she sees her dead stepsister, her horoscope told her not to go out that day. So she's kind of fun. She's kind of a little flaky, but I love her. And she contacts the judge when she keeps seeing her dead sister because she thinks she's in some kind of trouble. She is. And of course, he sends Shep because he knows that, first off, Shep was raised on a ranch, but he's actually a middle school math teacher, which I thought was kind of fun. I thought, why can't middle school math teachers be heroes, you know? And so anyway, he shows up, of course, in his cowboy hat and his long legged Wranglers, and they figure it out together. So a lot of fun, always fun.
I agree with you. As a middle school math teacher, I think we're all heroes.
Very smart and solve crimes.
Believe me. All right. Macy, your hero is Logan Heath and your heroine is Rose Daniels. And you named her after a flower.
I did. They're all the poor girls in this, all the poor girls in the Daniels family are flowers. I've got Pansy, who's in the first book, and she's a police officer. And I've got Rose and Iris, who is sort of the maiden aunt. And she's sort of the maiden aunt figure in this book as well, because of course, Rose has, in the tradition of Emma, decided to matchmake for her sister. And Logan can see that this is a very, very bad idea. And this is kind of what throws them together. And this was a different dynamic for me because I do love kind of that, similar to the dynamic in Caitlyn's book, in that I love kind of the older hero, the younger heroine that kind of grew up around him. But usually I do have her kind of pining after him for most of her life. And in this case, she's completely oblivious. Like, he's this like older guy that she knows, and like she knows that he's handsome, but she's very kind of like, she works with him all the time and she very much doesn't go there. And he has had a thing for her ever since it was like legal. And he is so appalled with himself because he's just like, this is my, like, I work with her. Like, she's so much younger. I've known her like since for way too long. And like, this can't be a thing. And so just forcing him to kind of contend with, she's a spitfire and she just kind of goes headlong into things. And she thinks she has everything figured out. She's raised around cowboys. She totally gets cowboys. She's not mystified by them at all. She thinks she knows everything. She's like, and she doesn't at all. And that's kind of where things come to a head with them when she's kind of meddling in her matchmaking. And Logan has realized that the guy she's trying to set her sister up with likes her. And she's like, I would know if like a guy was into me. He's like, you would not. Like, you don't. And so that kind of makes things interesting between them. So they were really fun.
Personal experience. So, Macy, you described your heroine, but how would you describe Logan? I mean, like,
he wants to be good, but he's very he wants to. He really does. He's not, and he wants to be honorable. He really wants to protect her. He wants to honor, kind of, because I think, particularly in their family, only one of them was over 18, and he was kind of in charge of all of them when the parents died. So everybody kind of feels like they owe all this to Ryder, who was the hero of the previous book, for all that he's done for them. And Rose is his baby sister. So Logan knows he can't go there. And then also he's got all these issues with his father, who he wasn't raised with. It's kind of a secret who his dad is. He's known. He has never told anyone else. His dad doesn't even know. Well-known philanderer about town, Hank Dalton, sick of Hank and all his kids. But so anyway, that's kind of a thing that he's dealing with, plus the guilt that he feels over kind of his mother died and his mother wasn't in a good space with his father, and he doesn't feel like he can pursue that relationship. And because of that, he doesn't feel like he can give Rose what she needs, because he's really angry about kind of his whole life, and he's still not over what happened with his mother, and he's not in a good space when it comes to family, and his position in the Daniels family is so important to him, and he's very aware that he's not related. So he lifts out and she doesn't. And so I think it's really complicated for him, and he just has a lot of baggage, and he doesn't really want to put it on her because she has enough of her own. So he tries to be honorable. He tries. He's really into her, so that doesn't last.
I think he was kind of honorable. She didn't help the situation.
No, she's a problem.
Caitlyn, you too. How would you describe Brady?
Oh, I love Brady. You know, Brady, he shows up in the other books, and his older brothers are just kind of jerks to him, to be honest. And they just treat him like the younger brother, and they treat him like, you know, he's the one who left the ranch. His middle brother did too, but to like sort of go off and be in the rodeo. But he was a young one. He went down to Denver because the books are set in Colorado, and he got involved in sort of, you know, corporate type things and completely put the ranch behind him. And they act like that's the biggest betrayal that they've ever suffered in their entire lives, when the reality is they don't really quite know what to do with him, because they don't know how to take him seriously. So a lot of his journey in this book is figuring out how to not take to heart what his father did, which was basically ignore him and also not take him seriously, and sort of pass that on to the two older brothers, but convince them that he has good ideas and he can contribute. And, you know, it's falling in love with Amanda that really allows him to take charge of his own life, because he's sort of, you know, putting up with stuff and she won't put up with it. She's done. She's not taking any more from her older brothers. She's like, I don't care what you think. I'm going to do my own thing. And her sort of being that kind of spitfire really, I think, encourages him to do the same and stand up for what he wants out of his family.
Right. She tries to convince him he's no longer the baby. So, yeah. And what about you, BJ? How would you describe Shep?
Shep, because he's a math teacher. He's very grounded, and he believes in science, and he believes in things that he can see, and he does not believe in ghosts. And so he's determined to prove to her that her stepsister has not come back from the dead. And in the meantime, she's trying to prove that she has, because she keeps seeing her and she knows she's come back from the dead. And so the two of them are kind of working against each other. And then what's between them is, when they were both at boot camp, they got really close, and he thought they really had something. And the morning they were supposed to leave, she left without even saying goodbye. And so there's that between them. I mean, they were pretty much kids then, but still, he knows she's flaky, but he likes it. She's not like him at all, and he's not so sure, you know. But at the same time, he's fallen for her terribly, which is just so fun. Yes, and but he's real grounded. And yet she kind of lifts him up and makes him more fun, you know, kind of loosens him up a little bit, which I like.
Yeah, I think, like, because he's a math teacher, he has common sense and can connect the dots.
Exactly.
Okay, so what made you guys interested in writing cowboy stories? So Macy, I'm going to start with you, only because of this pandemic, I started watching Big Valley TV series, you know, with Barbara Stanwyck. I don't know if you guys know about that or not, but I started watching it again. And one of the heroes is named Heath. And I said, I said, there's Macy's hero is Logan Heath. So I'm wondering, were you influenced by any Western TV shows? And that's why you just started to write cowboy stories?
Yeah, it's been, it's really kind of a funny story. I mean, I live in Oregon, and we do have cowboys. Like, people are always kind of like, are there cowboys there? Yes, there are. Portland is a very small spot way up north. There's a whole lot of state. And there's cowboys all around us here, a lot of rodeo cowboys, a lot of ranchers, and I live kind of surrounded by ranches. And so that's always been an influence in my life. My best friend growing up was a horse trainer, and she was a dressage rider, but I got a lot of exposure to horses and to barns and all of that then. And so that's always been kind of part in the background. But it wasn't, I started writing Presents, which is not Western at all. I started writing with Harlequin Presents, which is like kings and princes and billionaires. And I was really happy doing that. And then kind of when I first decided that I wanted to start writing longer books as well, and like write something different, I actually, so Harlequin throws a big party every year at the Romance Writers of America conference. And I was there at like what was probably my second Harlequin party. And there were all these covers with handsome cowboys on them coming up on the screen. And I was like, I think I want to try to write a cowboy. Like, clearly that's something that people do. And like, I had read historical Westerns, but I hadn't really read a lot of contemporary Westerns. So I went out and bought some contemporary Westerns, and it was kind of like meant, and then I saw this picture online, and this was before Pinterest, so I have no idea like how, of this guy with no shirt on holding a saddle, and it's a black and white picture, and then everything just kind of like crystallized for me. I was like, that's my hero, and that's what I'm gonna do. And so yeah, so it's really funny. I didn't think I'd ever write small town books. I'm from a small town, and I didn't think it would be fun to write what I knew to that degree. I liked writing what I didn't know. I liked writing about, you know, places I'd never been because it was fun. I got to research things I didn't know anything about. And so, it was the furthest thing from my mind. And then it just kind of all came together. And that's really how it started for me. And then I found out that I actually really love writing about what I know. So it's just a testament to the fact that, like, especially when you're in a creative field, like, always keep an open mind, because you never know where it could take you. And like, what's the point of being creative if you limit it? So I'm always glad that I kind of listened to the inspiration of the Handsome Cowboys.
Yes, so are we with your cowboy stories. Caitlyn, what about you? How did you get your inspiration?
Well, I did not grow up. I grew up 15 miles outside New York City, so nary a cowboy to be seen. But I now live in rural Oregon, where there's lots of cowboys. And at the time, I was for St. Martin's, I was writing post-apocalyptic dystopian Vikings, as you do. And when I was sort of done with that series, my editor said, you know, what about cowboys? And I thought, well, why not? Because now I do live sort of around all these cowboys, and I dictate books, so I'll drive out just past horses and like literal cowboys doing literal cowboy things. And it was so much fun to maybe not what I know, but to get to know even the area that I live in better just by writing all these stories about sort of people who would live in cowboy spaces. I think it's great. I'm having so much fun.
And BJ, you live in Montana, so you definitely live in cowboy country.
I live in Montana, and I live in a small rural town, and we have more trucks and bars and cowboys than any other thing else. And also in the county where I live, there are more cows than there are people, a lot more cows than people. So I see it every day. I mean, I grew up, we moved to Montana when I was 5, and I love that whole feel of Montana. I think sometimes I don't write cowboys so much as I try to write Montana, you know, what I see every day, and that feeling. The men up here are tough. I got to tell you, they're tough. And so are the women. Some of my friends are ranch women, and they live 65 miles outside of town. And if they head to town and they have a flat, they fix it themselves. There may not be anybody else come by. Seriously. One of my friends is like in her 70s, and she had a flat, and it was late at night, and she couldn't see well enough to get it fixed. So she just climbed in, went to sleep. Next morning she got up, changed the flat, and went to her church meeting. So I mean, these are the people. They're really tough, and I love their lifestyles. And so writing about that is you know, it's like home. It's home to me because yeah. It's so, you know, it's cowboys, but I don't think they think of themselves as cowboys so much. The guys, they're just, you know, they're strong. Think John Wayne.
Yeah. Well, as a city gal, yeah, those are cowboys.
Yeah,
me, I can tell you, they're cowboys.
When you see them in their Wranglers and their boots, yeah, they kind of look that way.
So, I'm wondering how would you describe your cowboys and cowgirls? I mean, do you think that, like, if you picked up a BJ book, someone would say, yeah, that's BJ's Cowboy and Cowgirls. I mean, do you have some kind of adjectives that describe your you know, who they are?
I think we all write different cowboys, which is good for the readers, because they take any cowboy they can get. But I think they're just different, because like I said, I write more Montana. Montana, the state, is actually a character in my book, because the weather and where we live and how far it is. I'm 3 hours from the closest Target. So, you know, and in the wintertime, you may not get there, and you may not pass another car. So, you know, it's very isolated, and I think it's kind of lonely sometimes out here, you know, for people who live out in the sagebrush. But as far as how I would describe them, like I said, they're just people who live in Montana, and they just happen to raise cows.
What about you, Caitlyn?
Yeah, I would agree that we all write different things, which is great. I think I have kind of angsty cowboys seems to be my niche at the moment. They definitely have a lot of their troubles, but they, I think, are also very much products of the town that they live in, which is the Cold River, Colorado. And I just think, imagining growing up like they have and being surrounded by mountains and the land and and they own this land and know that they're dedicating their lives to it. I just think it breeds a certain kind of person, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of write some sassy kind of cowboys too, right? In a sense.
I guess so. What's a sassy cowboy?
Like
they're mouthy.
You know,
like, I think they're funny, but I don't know that I would call I don't know that they're funny.
What about you, Macy?
I think that like I always, when I try to like draw a line between all the things that I write, because they're different things, I'm like, but I think all my heroes are like a law unto themselves, which is why I'm attracted to a billionaire, a king, or a cowboy. Because I'm like, for the cowboy, it's like all that he puts his effort into is the land, and that's what gives back to him. Like, he's a self-sufficient man. He can fix it all with his hands if he needs to. Like, you know that if you're gonna get with one of my cowboys, like it's gonna be handled. And that's what I like. I'm like, so they're kind of these very like, they're very independent men, and they kind of get it all done. But of course, what they're missing in life is the good woman kind of a thing. And then I would kind of echo what BJ said. Like, I'm a native Oregonian, and getting to put Oregon in as a character has been one of my favorite things in writing my series. I always set them here. And it's really fun to like get in my like very specific things, my, school rivalries, my regional rage, a lot of disdain for up north. And just, things that are fun for me, and kind of, and the ways that like I see a small town, which is that you have, kind of I'm originally from the town that I still live in, and I am like Carrie's daughter. I'm Haven's wife. I'm not really me a lot of the time, I'm like connected to all these other people who are from here, and my parents have lived here for a long time. So you have those kinds of connections, and then you have to be nice to the person who, was mean to you over here, because you can't burn the bridge because maybe their dad works at the bank and they're going to sign your mortgage documents. Like, there's all these connections. And I love that they have the ranch, so they have that air of independence, but then at the same time, you have those community connections that are so important when you live in a small town, and that you have to kind of observe that protocol. Like, you're not anonymous, you can't just blend in. And if you do something over here, people are going to hear about it over there. So you kind of have to behave yourself. And I love the complications that come with that when you're writing romances, when unlikely people get together, which might be a little bit like my real life romance, but that's a whole different story.
We're going to get to that. But it's interesting, because in your first book, Macy, you did kind of have that connection where someone wanted to be a police chief, and so that was kind of interesting.
I just thought that would be true, right? If you grow up in a town, because it's the same thing. Like, I'm still like little Macy that everybody knew, and then they also feel like they have to tell me, like, I can't actually read your books because I hear your voice in my head reading that, and so like I can't read your books. So like, people are like weirded out that I like grew up to write romance, and they've known me for too long, and like, so, but I'm like, that's what would happen, right? You grow up, and I know a lot of guys who are now police officers in town or whatever. You grow up, you become a police officer, and people are going to be like, I used to change your diaper and you're writing me a ticket. Like, of course that's going to happen. So I wanted to put that in there, because I was like, that's what happens.
That's right, it does. So I'm curious, and I guess I'll start with you, Macy. So do you have a favorite cowboy? I mean, whether it's on TV or in real life or in your stories?
I don't know that he's my favorite cowboy, but this is a fun story, so I'm going to tell it. It was all over the news about this cowboy who lassoed a robber in the Walmart parking lot. Well, that was in our area, mine and Caitlyn's area here. And I met him shortly after that happened, because at a local, semi-pro baseball game, he was there like throwing the pitch and being like honored because he had lassoed this robber in the Walmart parking lot on the back of his horse. You should Google the news story if you have not seen it, because it's amazing. His name is Robert, which I'll never forget because I met him and I shook hands with him and I was like, that's like the rough cowboy hands. And like, I felt like I had to like go home and like confess some stuff to my husband, because I was like, that was a whole lot of a lot. But I have a picture with him on my Facebook page, and I asked him if I could post it. I was like, can I post it on my, because I was like, because I write Cowboys and this is so exciting. Anyway, so he's kind of now my favorite like real life cowboy, because that was so cool.
What about you, Caitlyn?
Well, so probably my first introduction to cowboy things was, I don't know if you all know the author Jane Porter, but she was like, I'm taking you to PBR. And I thought, okay, I don't even know what that is. So she took me to my first, bull riding event, and I kind of lost my cool. I thought it would be like a sociological experiment, and then I was screaming, leaping up and down, whatever. And I continued to love bull riding very much. That was probably my first introduction to a kind of cowboy. But then I would say my favorite fictional cowboy is Walt Longmire, for sure. I just loved that show, Longmire. Did you guys watch it? Loved it.
I did.
Loved it.
And I met the author too. So Johnson.
Oh, wow.
Name is. So
yeah, Craig Johnson,
Craig Johnson.
right, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Craig Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and BJ, what about you?
Well, it would have to be my husband, because my husband ended up, he was born in Indiana, but he came to Montana and he went to work as an outfitter and became kind of a cowboy. And he's still a cowboy. And he's, of course, my favorite, of course, because, I mean, he can ride a horse, he can do all that stuff, ride a horse, tie up the packs and all that stuff that most people can't do. That's the thing. I think what's really cool about cowboys is they do a lot of things that most people can't do, hadn't even thought about doing. But as far as a fictional one, Justified. What's his name?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. He's my favorite. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately,
he takes off his boots.
Boots or something? Never mind. We're gonna keep this G. Unfortunately, time goes too fast, and we have about 5 minutes left. So what I'm going to ask each of you is, well, you can hold up your current book, but also if you could give us a shout out about your next book. So BJ, let's start with you.
My next book is called Out of the Storm, and it's my favorite book of all time because my uncle died in the Texas City disaster, and it was such a story I've heard my whole life. He went to work that day. He was working by the docks. There was a huge explosion. Tons of people got killed, but my Aunt Anna always believed that he had walked away. He had Alzheimer's, not Alzheimer's. He had amnesia, and that he had walked away. And for years, she would see somebody on a TV commercial or something and think it was him. She never remarried, and I always wanted to do that story. So Out of the Storm is about a woman who waited for her husband to come back after it was a huge accident like that, and still believed he was alive. But then she met somebody and was getting ready to get married, and then he took her to Montana, and then gosh, all kinds of things happen. Yes. She meets a carpenter that she swears is her husband, but is he her husband really, or is he just, we don't know. So it was wonderful. It was really fun to write. Anyway, Out of the Storm, it comes out December 29th.
Thank you. Caitlyn, what about you?
My next story starts my sort of Kittredge family. It's the older brothers of Amanda Kittredge, who's in this book. The first one is called Secret Night with a Cowboy, and it comes out December 1st, and it's about Riley Kittredge, who has a relationship, we don't know what kind, with his ex-wife, Ray, and it's sort of how they deal with their marriage that fell apart. And they're characters who have appeared throughout the other books. So people are kind of excited to see what on earth is going on with them.
Great. And Macy.
All right, my next book is called Claiming the Rancher's Heir. It's out November 10th. It's a Harlequin Desire, but you'll also be able to get like a 2-in-1 single title kind of edition of it as well, with a bonus story in the back for not a whole lot more. And it's about Ren Maxfield and Creed Cooper, and they really, really, really hate each other, but also really, really, really want each other. And it's kind of about what happens when two people have we're keeping it G, so I can't, anyway, they end up, they're gonna have a baby. So you can guess what happened in between yelling at each other and her getting pregnant. And that's what the book is about. And then December 1st, my 100th book with Harlequin is out, and that's a Harlequin Presents. It's not a cowboy, but I had to throw that in there because I'm very excited about it.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, they're kind of like friend enemies, right?
They really, really don't like each other. I would say they are a lot closer to like actual enemies. There's one of my favorite things I've ever written, and I was sitting in the same room as Caitlyn when I wrote it. We were like on a little writer's retreat. It was last year at this time, where he said something about her dancing, and she was like, "The only time I will be dancing is if it is on your grave."
Yeah.
Not picture him at all. So
well, listen, ladies, I really appreciate it. We thank you so much for coming on, and have a very good holiday, and we'll talk soon, I hope.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for getting us together. And Caitlyn and Macy, it was great seeing you.
I know, it's so good to see someone else, someone new.
It's like, wow, this is fun.
I know.
Beautiful.
The one thing about the internet that we're all probably live in different places, and we could still deal with each other. Otherwise, God, who knows what.
Nice. Well, thank you again for doing this.
Thanks so much.
No, you're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Happy trails.
Yes. Bye.